Good evening, my Link sisters. Welcome, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Green Table entitled Hands Up, Be Counted, a strategic discussion on Census 2020. My name is Link Nicole Venable, and I'm the Eastern Area Co-Chair for Public Policy or for Legislative and Public Policy. This Green Table Talk is the second in a series launched by Eastern Area Director Link Shawana Tucker Sims and Eastern Area Program Chair Link Rhonda Crowder. I would also like to recognize my Eastern Area Legislative and Public Policy Co-Chair, Link Evelyn Sample Oates, and Link Hassani Prats, the Eastern Area Chair for Corporate and Strategic Partnership, for their hard work and contributions to this very special Green Table Talk. Before we start the discussion, I would like to acknowledge the passing of a civil rights icon, the esteemed Congressman Elijah Cummings. Chairman Cummings was a fierce advocate for Baltimore and a poignant and effective advocate in Congress for over 23 years. Personally, I had the privilege of working with him for his entire tenure. And one of my favorite quotes from Congressman Cummings holds relevance for this Green Table Talk. And he said, "I realized that with African American people, we've been blocked from being all that God meant for us to be. I don't have time to be patient." As we're on the eve of the 2020 election year, as Black women, we don't have time to be patient either. And that's why, as Eastern Area Links, we must take action now. Let's turn now to our discussion. And I'd like to set the table a bit for our discussion on the importance of voting, GOTV, which stands for Get Out the Vote, and the Census 2020. As you know, the census is more than a head count. It's a snapshot of America that determines the number of congressional and electoral seats in each state, and most importantly, determines where more than $800 billion in state and federal dollars are allocated to communities each year. These are critical decisions that will impact you and who represents you in Congress. Likewise, the census data is critical to businesses that rely on census information to make local and national investment decisions. For example, Whole Foods would check census data before determining where to put a new location. As important, census data helps the federal government monitor and enforce civil rights laws and protections. And to do all that properly, the count needs to be accurate. And unfortunately, the census has historically missed certain communities, including communities of color, urban and rural, low-income households, young children at disproportionately high rates. It's missed immigrants, mobile young adults, female-headed single-parent households, and multi-unit housing dwellers are also at high risk of being missed. Being undercounted deprives these communities of equal political representation and access to public and private resources. There are no do-overs. Congress and the administration must ensure that the Census Bureau gets this right the first time, and it must resist efforts that could derail the planning for the census in 2020. At the end of this discussion, we hope you will be able to take away from this important conversation how you, both as individuals and as linked chapters, can engage and ensure that all of us are counted. I'm pleased today to introduce our moderator, who is Link Eleanor Tatum. Link Eleanor is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the New York Amsterdam News, the oldest and largest newspaper in the city of New York, and one of the oldest African-American papers in the country. In addition to her career in journalism, Link Eleanor is also an active member of the Greater New York community. She is currently a member of the Board of Trustees of her alma mater, St. Lawrence University. She sits on the board of the New York City Center, the Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem, and the Creative Vision Foundation. Link Eleanor, I'd like to turn to you now to take the mic, pull up to the green table, and introduce our very special guests.
Thank you, Nicole. It is so good to be with you today. Right now, we are sitting here with Link Hazel Dukes, and we will be joined by Mark Morial shortly. So Link Hazel Dukes is president of the NAACP New York State Conference and a member of the NAACP National Board of Directors, a member of the NAACP Executive Committee, as well as an active member of various NAACP board subcommittees. Dr. Dukes is a woman of great strength and courage. Her dedication to human rights and equality is exemplified by her role linking business, government, and social causes. Dr. Dukes is an active and dynamic leader who is known for her unselfish and devoted track record for improving the quality of life in New York State. Dr. Dukes has many organizational affiliations. She is the former president of the Metro Manhattan Links chapter. In 2010, was appointed the National Links NGO representative and is a former trustee of the State University of New York and Stillman College. Dr. Dukes is a member of the National Council of Negro Women, Inc., the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS, Inc. Dr. Dukes is the recipient of numerous awards for her outstanding leadership activities: Ellis Island Medal of Honor, YWCA, City of New York, John LaForge Memorial Award for Interracial Justice, Guy R. Brewer Humanitarian Award, amongst many, many other awards. It is so good to be having this discussion with you here today, Link Hazel.
Thank you, Link Eleanor. This is a great moment in history for us to participate in, and especially with our president and CEO of the National Urban League. Several months we've been talking about this. Each time I have seen him, we've been talking about the census and the 2020 election. And so for my Link sisters who tonight, you know that sometime I come down hard on us, that it comes a time that we have to pull off our St. John's and our heels and get in our sneakers and hit the pavement. And this is the time for us to do that. The census is absolutely lifeblood for us at this time. We know what is happening now, even with executive orders of cutting many programs, Social Security, the Immigration Act that this present president have done to our country. And so when we began this process, the man who's in the White House started with a great fear for those persons who were not citizens, to put it on the put the word on the form, but the Urban League, NAN, NAACP, NAACP Civil Rights went to court and fought like the Dickens to get it removed. But people are still fearful.
Yeah.
And some people don't know their status, especially seniors in the community. And this card, the way it is designated to happen, receive a card, yes, our libraries are going to be involved, but there are many people in our community, even young people, who are not technological literate, and they're going to be afraid to do any of this. And so to have our civil rights group, National Urban League, our affiliates across the country of Urban League and NAACP, we want you to join with us. We want you to be a part of talking to at least 5 people on your block to see if they receive the first thing they will receive is a postcard. Make sure that they receive that, and then go back to them and ask them. Every Link chapter meeting, we ought to be talking about the census.
Yeah, absolutely. First, let's introduce this gentleman that just joined us. We have here Mark Morial, but before that, we are so pleased that the eastern area of the Links has now more formalized partnership with the National Urban League, and we are pleased to have you with us this evening, Mark Morial, who is the president and CEO of the National Urban League. The nation's one of the nation's oldest and largest and most historic civil rights advocacy organizations. Former mayor of New Orleans from 1994 to 2002. You led New Orleans, the New Orleans Renaissance, basically, and you left office with a 70% approval rating.
Mm-hmm.
In May 2003, you became the head of the National Urban League. And, you know, you have got gangbusters since here in New York. And you have made such a difference here, and you continue to just work tirelessly for the people of this country.
Let me, first of all, thank you, Eleanor, for your leadership at the Amsterdam News, for your leadership as a member of the Links, and for your leadership here in the New York community, and for your friendship. Thank you so much. And Hazel Dukes, you are a legend in New York, a legend in the NAACP, a legend in the civil rights movement, and a legend in this nation. Your many years of leadership, steadfast, unflinching, your incredible energy and ability to be everywhere. I'm just so honored to be with both of you all tonight. And as Eleanor mentioned, to formalize, to celebrate the formalization of a civic engagement relationship between the Eastern Area Links and the National Urban League to do great things. And this is the beginning, and this is a part of that relationship, and certainly it would acknowledge a similar relationship between the Links and the NAACP. And we want to thank Hassani Prats, who is sitting off camera, but who's been the driver and the negotiator. Thank you so much, Hassani. And I want to thank my team here at the National Urban League. They are off screen, but they've done all the technical work to ensure that this webinar would be a great success. And Link Shawana, who is the head of the Eastern area of the Links, we want to thank her for her leadership and for her support for this work. Our civic and civil rights associations have long had a relationship. Many of our most active citizens hold multiple memberships. They're in the Links, they're in fraternities and sororities, they're in the Urban League, they're in the NAACP, they're members of faith-based churches. Our active citizens are the backbone of our community. And that is why tonight we want those of you who are on this webinar to place on your calendars and in your mind the date of March 12th, 2020. March 12th, 2020 is the day that the Census Bureau will begin mailing letters to all households across the nation. And that letter will have within it a unique user code, if you will, which will allow people to fill out the census form online or to fill out the census form over the telephone. The first two options to participate in the 2020 census. The second two options, or the second set of options, option 3 and 4, are what we traditionally have done. And that is filling out a paper form or waiting until an enumerator or a door knocker knocks on your door and fills out the form while they talk to you on your doorstep.
Well, let's back up for a moment. Why is the census so important?
Money and power. Ms. Dukes, it's about money
And power.
almost
Absolutely.
$1 trillion in federal money that's distributed to cities, states, community-based organizations, and people are distributed based on the data that comes out of the census. Medicaid, Head Start, workforce, community development block grant, and I could continue to name
Education.
many. Education, money,
Yeah.
political power, the reapportionment of the New York City Council, the New York State Legislature, the congressional seats in New York, and all 50 states across the nation is determined by the data that comes out of the census. How many members of Congress each state has, how many members of Congress each city or county has, how many majority African American districts we have, majority Latino districts, derived from information in the census. So this is not counting because someone wants to just know how many people live in the United States, although it is that. It's got a higher purpose. It's got an important purpose.
Dr. Dukes, why do you think communities of color should be particularly concerned with the Census 2020?
Absolutely. just my pet peeve is education. We do not have enough resources for the population of children we have in schools, and especially in urban areas. It's more than just a qualified teacher in the urban area. We have so many children that are homeless, that need resources as more social workers, more guidance counselor. So and then think of the other social service area. Uh, some people are working 3 jobs, but they need assistance. They need some food stamps. They need a help with the keep shelter over their head. You know, in New York State, we have what is called rent regulation apartments, where where people can seek to have assistance with their rent. We have Section 8 housing here. All of this is included in the count. They should count everybody in the house. You're not giving names. You're saying 13 of us live here, 14 of us live here, 2 live here. Whatever the number, that's what is necessary for us to have. And so I think President Morial said it. It's about power and money.
And why did the National Urban League choose the census as its premier civic engagement issue?
We thought that the census is so foundational. Look, in this age of voter suppression, in this age of division, in this age of Trumpism, we had a great concern, and that concern continues to this day, that there may be some people in this country, in fact, I know there are, who do not want to see every community completely counted. And what we couldn't do, and what we cannot do, is stand and watch, stand and observe, stand and spectate. What we must do is be intimately involved in, one, holding the Department of Commerce, the Census Bureau, and the administration accountable. That's why the civil rights community across the board fought aggressively and ended up winning to delete the citizenship question from the census, because it would encourage people not to fill out the form.
So the citizenship question will not be on the census form.
Will not be on the census form.
But we already frightened.
Exactly.
Right.
So how do we counteract that fear that has been instilled in so many people with that whole discussion that went on for so long?
What we are doing now, what we are doing on this webinar, we are educating people to become a part of those of us who are activists that people have not been active before. So we encourage, and we are looking for partnerships with all the groups.
Look, Dr. Dukes is absolutely right. We are educating, we are informing, we're sharing information. Here's a historical point. When this Constitution was written in the United States, African Americans were counted for the purposes of enumeration, which means a census, as 3/5 of a person. And although we were counted, we were afforded no rights to vote, although Southern states counted us for the purpose of determining how many members of Congress these Southern states would have. The 3/5 rule, which persisted until the Constitution was amended after the Civil War with the abolition of slavery, with the 13th Amendment. We've got to understand this historical point, this historical context, and we have to understand the money and the power dynamic of this census. Now, I want a few tips about the census. It's important. There was an undercount in 2010. What does an undercount mean? People whose names did not appear on the form. Either their door was not knocked, they didn't fill out the form, or when a person filled out a form, they did not include all the people in their household. We want to ensure that all children are counted. The census is a household-based, if you will, survey. So if 2 sisters live in one apartment and they each live there with both of their children, only one form is coming to that apartment, not two. So whomever is the quote head of household has to ensure that everyone in the household is on the form. Now, some people say, I'm concerned about, this is real, situation where the lease says I'm supposed to have two people and I have four. The information you give to the census is confidential, no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone threatens. It's confidential in the law, and to expose that information would subject the person that exposes that census information to the public to criminal penalty.
Now, you were the chair of the 2010 census. You were appointed by President Obama.
Yes, I had the distinct pleasure to work on the 10 census. The 10 census was one of the most successful. But even though it was one of the most successful, there was still an undercount of Black children, brown children, and white children, but Black children to a greater extent.
So what were the lessons that you learned
The
from
lessons
that?
we learned is that we have to do a much better job publicly educating people, helping them see and understand what's going to be on that form.
Well, is this administration actually prepared to undertake the census? And secondly, do they actually care?
So let me say this. I am awaiting the beginning of their advertising campaign. The good news is that the advertising contract has an African-American subcontractor, the Carol Williams Agency. If Carol Williams is allowed to use her creative experience and is given the latitude to design the campaign that's going to focus on hard to count, I feel that with the right money, which the Congress has added additional money, the advertising campaign could be strong. If she is not given a chance, if her voice and her creative energies are suppressed, there's an issue. Are there some? I can't speak for the administration. I don't want to speak for the administration. I have great concerns, but what I want to be very, very careful about, notwithstanding what the administration thinks, does, or seeks to orchestrate, I don't want us to fall for head fakes and deception. And I want us to do what we got to do in our community to make sure every one of us is counted. Trust me that the civil rights leadership across the board will bring the heat, as we already have, to the extent that we need to bring the heat. And we're prepared to bring that heat to ensure that the Census Bureau does what it's supposed to do. We have areas of concern already right now. Tonight, we want to focus on what we need to be prepared to do. March 12th, we need to be ready. How can you prepare? You could start putting your own list together, who's in my household. Be prepared.
Now, they're going to ask a lot of really strange or things that people will think are strange questions, like how long it takes to get to work. And
No,
they're not going to ask those questions now? There's going to be the long form and the short form still?
I'm not sure if the long form is being used this time.
you can use either one. You can choose to lead. But let me just go back to what our president is saying to us. I don't want us to get bogged down in which form we're going to use. What we want to stress tonight and in all of the meetings that is being held across the country with every group, the Masons, the Shriners, we just have reached out to all the partners that we want people to fill out, make the phone call, do the first part of it. And then we will see what we need to do when we get to the form. We're going to encourage people. The library is going to be open. Just let me give New York City a shout out. Our good friend, Julie Miller, who is working with the census for New York City. They RSVP, their requisition for groups to apply for funds is already out. Deputy Mayor Phil Thomas and his group, and I think it's City or Columbia, one is involved with it. So we are moving in New York City and the state. The governor have a count committee. We have Byron Brown on the count committee. The speaker and the leader chose people to be on that committee. John Flatto, who has worked with 10 census count in New
And the
York.
2000 census.
Census, right.
Yeah.
He's been there. He's a
Yeah.
great partner. He's helping, assisting us. Eleanor Simmons over to McEvers College. She's doing a great job of information, educating, having forums all over the boroughs that we are. What I think we are saying that we need everyone to become a partner. And that's why I'm so pleased with Shawana for getting this off the ground and get it started now, not waiting till
Right.
March.
But I think what I was trying to get at is with the census, they ask all sorts of different questions. And I don't want people to get confused and not understand that it's besides just the basic demographics of your family. There are other questions that may seem out of sorts and kind of off
I
the
think
wall.
what I'd like to do.
But those are not the ones that are really important.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, because I think this is an ongoing education process. I've asked Jerry Green, who is leading our census effort, who was on the big call last night, if we could get a copy of the form that they're going to use.
Yeah, we haven't
So
received
that
it yet, right?
people can take a look before they even see it, so they can be prepared for the questions that are going to be asked and to understand what they've got to fill out. We will do that. We will help to educate because we want to take the anxiety,
Mhm.
take the nervousness, take the
Fear.
out of this situation so that people can fill out the form and fill it out easily. So we're going to get the form. There were some good questions last night on the call about the race question. Well, I think we ought to let people see how the race question is going to be asked. So before they even see it, they can say, oh, I know how I filled that out. I know what box I'm going to check. So this is an ongoing effort. We're starting today, or rather starting now, I should say. There is an umbrella organization, Eleanor, called the Black Census Roundtable, made up of 55 urban and African American focused organizations, being led by the National Urban League and Melanie Campbell. The NAACP is a major component of that, as is the National Action Network and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And we are also, and Dr. Dukes knows this, we're also trying to send a strong message to the community that the leadership is unified.
Yes.
And the leadership is together, and we're going to all put our energy behind Census 2020.
Now, in 2016, the NAACP implemented an unprecedented GOTV effort in the last election cycle. What lessons did the NAACP learn from there that you're going to be able to apply to the census effort?
To get from behind desks and out of the walls, to get in everywhere there are people gathered at the Apollo, at the Trump Rewards. Reverend Sharpton talked about census. Every time we have a gathering, whether it's 50, whether it's 25, or whether it's 2, census should be on the agenda. The more we educate people on this, people are fearful. People don't want their business known. And it's the president said, easy. We in the housing project, there is a law now that if you have people staying in your apartment without a lease, you can be evicted. You can be evicted. So there are people with their daughters who or their sons just returned home from prison. Where are they going? Mom opened the door for her child to come home, welcoming them home. But he's not or she's not on the lease. And so we do have some problems, but we're going to educate people that we will take care And he's exactly right. I have not seen the force of the civil rights community so committed to making sure that we have everyone counted in this 2020 census.
We have two big things as a community we have to focus on in 2020. One is the census. The second
election.
is getting out the vote.
That's
in
right.
the election. And I think we're all, to some extent, asking that we've all got to do all the other work we normally do. But we got to elevate, Dr. Dukes, Eleanor, these two issues.
Right.
Wherever we go, we have to talk about it. We have to educate it. We have to speak about it. We've got to write about it.
Mobilize.
We've got a social media, everything possible to encourage our community. So much is on the line.
Yeah.
We are faced with a time in American history where there's a pushback, where there's an assault. This afternoon, I spent about an hour, 30 to 40 minutes actually, working on a judicial appointment of a very, very bad person who's being nominated to become a judge on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals for the same seat Thurgood Marshall once held. And this is a person who's been hostile, even now, to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, if you can imagine that. So we, Menashe, I believe is his name, and it's a demonstration. You never think that a person like that could even get nominated to the federal bench.
And, it is things like that, and reasons like that, that the census is so important, because it puts the people in power that are able to appoint these judges.
And I want to thank you and the Amsterdam News for
continuing.
right there on the front page.
Yes.
Continuing the tradition of the Black press being a community advocate and a community servant. And we need all those voices. And I say all the time, we want everyone to be counted. But our focus as a National Urban League, because of our mission, is Black America. To make sure that Black America is fully counted, we encourage everyone to be counted. We want to focus on those communities that have historically been undercounted in the 2020 census. And we're going to do this. And let me just say this also about the links. I think the links, I'm so proud and impressed with the manner in which the links have stepped up, because in my family, there are 3 generations of members of the links.
That's right.
My grandmother, my mother, and of course, my wife and my sisters all are members, proud members of the links as a strong, purposeful civic organization. And there's no chapter stronger than New York and no region stronger than the East.
Right.
Hey, y'all folks back in New Orleans, I still love you. I still love you. You're always home. But links are powerful here, and the impact is strong.
Now, is the National Urban League and the NAACP, are they going to be doing anything in terms of job fairs and whatnot for hiring when it comes to census jobs? And are there going to be as many census jobs that of this time around, or not?
They're saying that they're going to hire 500,000 people. They have a target of 500,000 people. One thing they've done that I don't think is a good idea, and in fact, I think it's a bad idea, is they've cut back on the number of local census offices.
Right.
They've cut the number of local census offices that are going to be open in half, quote unquote, because of the age of the internet. Don't think that's a good idea. Nonetheless, it is what we're faced with. So right now, you've got to apply for a job at the census online. This is different.
So should people be applying now?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We are encouraging that. We have meetings. There's been several job fairs. Senator Brian Benjamin held a job fair.
That's here in New York.
Here in New York. And I'm
Okay.
sure they're having them all over the country. They know, as President Morrell said, you have to go online.
So you can get information at census.gov.
Well, we're still taking it. We got,
Census.gov.
yeah. But we have flyers that is in churches now about be a census taker. Right.
So
People are applying now.
And look, it's a great job for students. It's a great job for people who are in transition between jobs. take advantage of
$25 an hour.
the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right, so there are 500,000 jobs apparently.
nation.
Across the nation, and so if you've got college students, if you've got friends that are in between jobs, you should be reaching out to them. You should be talking about this in your churches. You should be talking about this in all your civic organizations.
Or people
correct?
may not be working. People may
Right.
be unemployed and they're looking. Look, Census is a great job. It'll last 6, 8, 10 months maybe, or years. So it's a good opportunity. It's $25 an hour for most of those jobs, right?
Yeah, $25.
Yeah, and so let's go back to what you were saying before. So the process is going to start on March 12th. That's when the first letters are going to hit the mail, correct?
That's correct. And when you get the letter, the purpose of the letter is to give you a unique user code that will allow you to go to the internet or allow you to pick up the phone and call and give your information out. We know everyone doesn't have an internet connection, but we want all those who can to fill out the form over the phone or on the internet. That's called the self-response rate. We got to raise the self-response rate and not leave to chance that the enumerator is going to knock on your door.
All right, and so then after you finish doing your form, and you live in an apartment building, say, or in a neighborhood, you should go next door to your neighbors and ask them if they've done theirs and if they're elderly
and they need some
help. You should,
we've asked churches
take your phone out and help them, right?
We've asked churches to put help after service for the congregation. Be able to say, come downstairs. They can have some chicken and a little refreshment, and let them stay after service and began to do it.
It's a great way for the Links to actually reach out to their alumni as well. Have some visits to our alumni.
Yes.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. That's why we want these partnerships. Everyone can have a part, need a part to play in this very, very important 2020 census and get out to vote in 2020. And he's absolutely right. Yes, we have other work to do. We do it every day, but we got to raise this to the top of the agenda.
Right to the top of the list. It's important. It's about money and power. And the census, we live with the results for 10 years.
That's right.
Yeah, and we also need to talk to our kids about it as well.
Absolutely. We might be losing 2 seats in New York. So it's a possibility we might lose 2 congressional seats.
And that's just not because of the undercount, but that's just because of the people that have moved out. So
the redistricting, absolutely,
Yeah.
population,
Yeah.
absolutely. So this is the education, and I'm sure the people that's on this webinar tonight is going to be scratching their head. I didn't know this. I never heard of this before. And so this is great, a great tool to use. And as a link, I want to commend our Eastern Area Director, Shawana, for this important work, because a lot of people have never thought of the things that we're talking about tonight.
Let's give it up for Shawana.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Shawana's doing a great job. So we've just got a few minutes left, but what do you think is the most important takeaway for people to have with them when they think about the census?
To understand the effect, money and power. And to understand it's just not about them. It's about their neighbors. It's about their aunts, grandmothers who will be suffering from this census count. Medicaid, Medicare, everything is under the gun. And if by any chance, no, I'm not going to even say it because I'm not going to claim it. But we got to be ready for the 10-year period. And if something happened very unusual, that we continue on the path that we're in now with the division we have, the disdain for people of color. We got to be ready.
We got to be ready. We will be ready
Yes,
because
right.
we must be counted and we must be active in our community. And I recall greatly the 2010 census when President Obama took office. It was underfunded. In his Recovery Act, he included significant sums.
That's right.
I remember the day that the White House called and asked me to take over the chairmanship of the committee. They said, we're calling you because we need help, and we need help now. We want to appoint you to this position, and guess what? We want you to go to a meeting in 3 days, because they were concerned about the direction of the census as they took office. We had President Obama in 2010. We don't have President Obama now, or someone with his sensibilities and commitment to the community. So we have to do everything in our power to ensure that we are fully counted. And, Eleanor, I think you play an important role in keeping the issue in front of the people. And we need to talk about it now. We need to begin to plan about it now. We need to look at that big date. March 12th is when these forms, these letters are going to be coming to your mailboxes.
So we have a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of education to do. And I think trying to get that form ahead of time so that we can start talking about it and really educating folks as to how to fill out this form, and making sure that once we do get the form that we fill it out and that we help our neighbors and our friends and our family fill it out as well is going to be so incredibly important.
Well, we've asked the New York City Council Committee to make sure that they have an advertising budget for our community, not just for the New York Times, but for you. And I think you were in that meeting when we made that pitch that day to Julie Mellon, when we was at the Schomburg.
Yes, yes.
And we started there, and I'm not stopping there. I'm not going to wait.
We cannot stop.
I'm not going to wait for the federal money to come for advertising. You're going to be doing it earlier.
Right, and it's going to be the small local newspapers.
Absolutely.
It's going to be the statewide newspapers. It's going to be, it has to be everywhere.
Well, we're going to see that the Amsterdam News and our community and the Beacon, that we began no later than January, because
Right.
it's happening. You got the holidays coming. People get all excited about Christmas.
Yeah, but it's so much bigger
January,
than just the city of New York. It's
right.
just,
Absolutely. We got to start.
But I
We
think
can't wait till
it's
March.
Exactly.
It's a positive sign
Right.
that cities like the city of New York and others, some states around the nation, are funding their own census
Right.
drives, their own complete count committees,
Absolutely.
their own get out the count efforts.
Yeah,
So-
and those are mostly cities that really have a stake on it. And now we'd love to turn this conversation over to our Eastern Area Director, Link Schwana. Link Schwana, I think, is now with us. Welcome, Link Schwana. Do we have you on the phone? Unfortunately, Link Schwana has been disconnected. We're going to try to get her back. Okay, now we have Link Nicole. Are you back with us?
I sure am. Links, this has been an eye-opening and critical discussion. We hope that you've gained information and knowledge on how you can engage as links. We will be sending to all Eastern Area chapters key resources that will help you with specific actions. And to summarize a little bit of what we heard today, things that you can do. First, find out where hard to count neighborhoods are in your area and make a plan to have a discussion about why the census is important. Second, educate your community about the census. Have community meetings, ask your church if they can have a hiring fair, and work with other cluster link chapters. Third, encourage candidates of color to apply for the 500,000 jobs with the census. These are high-paying, good jobs, and they will help ensure that everyone is counted accurately. Fifth, plan to volunteer to help people fill out their census forms by engaging in questionnaire assistance. The National Urban League, the NAACP, the American Library Association, and the U.S. Census Bureau all have guides on how to go about this outreach, and we'll be sending links to each of these guides. And with that, I would like to thank our moderator, Link Eleanor, and our special guests, Connecting Link Mark Morial and Link Hazel Dukes, for their participation in our Green Table Talk this evening. And on behalf of the Eastern Area Director of the Links, Link Shawana Tucker Sims, and the entire team, Link Hassani has some special gifts for each one of you for participating this evening. In sum, please look for the Eastern area to circulate resource guides and toolkits to follow up on this very important discussion. Our communities must be counted in the 2020 census, and we must ensure that our voices are heard loudly in Washington and around the country next year. Every vote counts, and your vote is your voice. Finally, we hope that you will join the Eastern area of the links again for our next and upcoming Green Table Talk. And with that, again, many thanks to everyone for participating, for everyone plugging in. We hope you found it informative, and we hope that you'll have a very pleasant evening. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did Langston want to join us? Guess not. Well, again, thank you so much, and have a very good night.
Thanks,
Thank
team.
you.
Team NUL.
That's right. Great job. All right. Very good. Very good. Yeah. We've
Thank
had,
you again, everyone. Thank you so much. It's Nicole. I'm signing off.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right. Give it up for Patrick, Mike, and Will. Give it up for Patrick, Mike, and Will. And Peter Paul. Thank you guys for staying late tonight, helping us out for the